In this video, we're checking out the xTool M1, which they're claiming is the world's first hybrid laser and blade cutting machine. Because not only do you get a laser, but you also get this nice little razor blade. All right, welcome back to the shop. My name is Brandon, and I can help you figure out what is the best laser, 3D printer, CNC for your shop. And this video is no different because this machine is something I've been very excited about. If you've seen my reviews in the past, you know that the other machine from xTool, the D1, is my current favorite laser diode engraver. It does not have an enclosure, but it is a great machine overall. And MakeBlock also makes a larger CO2 machine that I've reviewed way back in the past, which also does a great job. But this one's nice because they throw in the whole world of blade cutting. So a machine like a Cricut or a Silhouette, you're basically combining that with the traditional laser engraver slash cutter, and you get this, the xTool M1. And a quick disclaimer before we get going, I'm not paid for any of these reviews on this channel, and then I'm giving you my honest opinion, and those companies don't have any say on this final video. Okay, so a quick overview of this machine. First off, on the cutting area, you're looking at 385 by 300 millimeters, which works out to about 15 by 12 inches. This actually comes in two different versions. You can get a 5-watt laser module or a 10-watt laser module. 10 watts is about at the top end currently. We're about to start seeing some 20-watt modules coming out, like the one from Atom Stack we reviewed in the previous video, and an upcoming 20-watt module from xTool that we'll check out in the future. But 10 watts actually is a really good sweet spot. You're going to be able to do a lot of stuff, both on the engraving and the cutting side of things. If this unit had a 20-watt module, you really wouldn't be able to use the full 20 watts, and we'll get into why in a minute. The big difference with this machine is it's not only a laser, but it also has a blade module. So you're able to pop out the blade, comes in this little brass insert, and you've got this 45-degree blade that you can use to cut things out. Now, why would you want to cut with a blade when you have a laser? I mean, lasers are awesome and knives are cool, but they're not lasers. The main reason is you're able to cut different things you just can't with a laser. Any plastics that are PVC, you cannot cut with a laser because they're going to create toxic fumes that are not going to be great. So a blade allows you to do that. Also, more fragile or flimsy things like cloth or adhesive vinyl or really thin paper just aren't going to work with a laser, and a blade's going to do a much, much better job. Just having that option is pretty incredible with a machine like this. Another nice thing this has that the D1 does not is an integrated camera. So the machine isn't on right now, but if it was, every time I shut the lid, it's going to take a picture and send it to their software. And the camera actually is right here underneath the case. And it gives you a great image of what your workbed looks like. Now that feature isn't just so you can line up your artwork on your material, but they also do some pretty cool integration stuff with the software that we'll get into here in a minute. And then probably the most obvious difference between this and pretty much any of the other diodes I've reviewed on my channel is the fact this comes in an enclosure. So this isn't just an enclosure that they put on top of the D1. The actual machine is built around the entire enclosure. The rails for the Y-axis are actually built into the frame. They're on the back side. So any of the debris isn't going to get caught up and gunk it up. And just overall, it's a much cleaner design. But there's two big things with the enclosure that makes this awesome. First is this lid. This is tinted, and this is going to protect you from the light that is coming from that diode laser. Typically, you're going to have to wear glasses anytime a laser is running, and I still would recommend wearing glasses just in case, but this lid is going to do a great job of blocking out pretty much any of that light. And then also it's got a fan in the back, so it is extracting the fumes and the dust, and it's sending it out a hose, which comes with the unit. So this is fully enclosed. So if you have this next to a window, you can have this actually running indoors. You can have this running inside of a room. You're just gonna need a place to exhaust this hose out the back. And that has been my biggest criticism of these open air diode units. The laser modules themselves have been doing a great job, but they're also creating tons of fumes, lots of debris. You really need a way to keep all that stuff enclosed, to keep it safe, and a great way to vent it out, which this machine does. Now, since this does come with a blade, you're also going to get a couple grip mats, which are these guys, and I still have the plastic on them. That's why they're shiny, and that's because there's an adhesive on the front and the back of these. And I actually have two different versions. One is for fabric, so it is a little bit stronger. That is the pink guy. And then the other one is a lighter grip, and that is this blue guy for doing adhesive vinyls or even like the faux leather they provide as a sample. And you'll have to use these mats because unlike a laser, where you're not actually touching your material, the blade is pushing against the material, so it needs a way to stay in place. With a bigger CNC router, you're going to use clamps to hold your wood in place and cut through, but with a vinyl cutter style machine, these mats are super common. They're really easy to use. The mat sticks to the machine and the material sticks to the mat, and it's really easy to take on and take off, but it still keeps it in place so you can cut the stuff out. So let's talk about the laser. Again, this comes with a 5-watt and a 10-watt option. This is the 10-watt unit that I am reviewing, and for what I can tell, it's pretty much the exact same laser module they use in the xTool D1, meaning they're actually combining 2 laser diodes together. They're focusing them together to give you the full 10 watts, because you really can't get over 6 watts with a laser diode. So by using 2 and putting them together, you're able to get a stronger laser beam. They're claiming that their laser dot is 0.08 by 0.08. I usually find it's usually going to be a little bit thicker than that with my testing. And if you want to see a full review of this actual laser module, be sure and check out the xTool D1 review because we go into it in depth up there. Now, other than the power of the laser, the biggest factor that's going to influence its performance is how well you can focus it. With most other machines, this is going to be manual, where you can unscrew it in the back and lift it up and back and then screw it into place. The D1 has a little lever that pops down that gives you the exact distance that it needs to go. Then you lock it back into place. But this one does it all in software. The laser module will move up and down inside of the enclosure as it actually has autofocus. So for any material that is thinner than 16 millimeters, all you have to do is shut the lid, hit the button inside of the software, and it's going to figure out the material thickness for you. The best I can tell is it turns off the internal lights for the machine, and I'm thinking there's an infrared camera or something inside that's measuring the distance, and then it's able to focus it from there. Now, if you get material from xTool/MakeBlock, they have a little tag on it that the camera is able to read that can tell what the thickness is, and then it defines it from there as well. So it might be a combination of the two, but I have found if I put in material that's not marked, it's still able to give me a really accurate thickness. Now, anything over 16 millimeters, you're gonna have to measure manually, and there's a place inside of the software where you can define the thickness, and then the laser module is going to move as a result. And when you're setting the focus, there is one thing you have to tell the software, and that is if you're using triangle supports, which are these guys. In the package that I got these in, this seems to be something that they got feedback when they were testing out this machine. Because when you're cutting out material with the laser, you're gonna put these in, and it's gonna give you a gap underneath the material, so there's airflow, so you're gonna get a cleaner cut. Now, because of that, it's gonna add an additional height to your material, so it wants to know that before it goes in. These work fine, but I wish they gave you a simple honeycomb bed that you could put in. Something like this, so you don't have to line up those little triangles in the exact spot where the cuts are gonna happen. You can basically just drop this in and then do your material, and you're good to go. These are typically a little bit thicker than those triangles, so maybe that's what they're trying to stay away from, since you don't have a ton of clearance on the inside. But their system works, it just takes a little bit longer to get it lined up when you're ready to cut. Now, speaking of really thick material, this is something that a lot of the desktop CO2 machines does, and that is you can remove the base of this machine, then you can pick it up and actually put it on top of your material. That's obviously if the material is bigger than the machine. They also include spacer blocks that have a couple of different orientations. One will put it up 70 millimeters and the other one will put it up 20 millimeters. So this is the base that is removable, and these feet will just sit inside of these blocks. And then you can raise it up and get material underneath if you need to. Now, the laser cutting performance brings me to the biggest drawback of this machine, and that's the fact it doesn't have any type of integrated air assist. And all air assist is a stream of compressed air that is shooting out right where your laser beam is coming out to be able to give you a really clean cut, as well as put out any fires that might pop up. Overall, this is gonna give you a much, much cleaner cut, especially at higher wattages. I definitely do find at 10 watts, you pretty much need an air assist to get a pretty clean cut, or you're gonna have to put some type of mask on top of whatever you're gonna cut that you can peel off later, that you'll have a clean material underneath. xTool does have an accessory that they have for the D1 that adds air assist to it, but the best that I can tell, that accessory doesn't work with the M1, so I'm hoping that's something they're coming out with in the future. So if you're doing a lot of high power cutting, just keep in mind that you don't have that air assist option, and potentially this might not be the best option for you as a result. And then when it comes to the blade attachment, it's not really a con, but it's something you need to keep in mind. If you're doing laser cutting, you're gonna get a lot of residue, especially on the base of this machine, because again, even with these really don't lift the material up that high, so you're gonna get a lot of just like nasty laser stuff on the bottom. So when you switch over to the blade and you put in one of those mats are going to be sticking right onto all of that nasty stuff. So you'll definitely want to clean that out. I use isopropyl alcohol. It does a good job of just getting all of that stuff and give me a clean surface to be able to put the adhesive mat on top of, and then I can use the blade. Where I could potentially see this being an issue is if you're using the laser and the blade at the same time. So you're using the laser to do some type of engraving on top of your material, and then for whatever reason, you're using the blade to cut it out versus the actual laser. Maybe you want to keep the charring down. You're gonna have to be really careful with that engrave, just that you're not gonna get soot all over the mat, or it's just gonna be something that you're going to have to replace. Now in the deluxe kit, which is like all the accessories they have for the N1, they also give you 2 of those 2 mats. So you get 4 total. You can always buy more in the future if you need them. On the connection side of things, it's pretty standard. You've got USB on the back that you connect directly to your computer, and they also support Ethernet as well as Wi-Fi. To get the Wi-Fi set up, I went through their software and I was able to set up this machine on my network, and then I'm able to control this from any computer inside of the house. They also have an app on your phone that will also connect over Wi-Fi, so you can connect over your local network. In terms of software, I've been using their software, so the xTool Creative Space. It's currently in a beta, and I've actually gotten a couple updates from it just in my few days of testing this machine. And way back from when I initially tested it with the D1, this really has come a long way. For laser software, it pretty much is going to do everything that you need it to do. You can do simple text and shapes, but then you can import your own vector designs, import your own images, and then control all of your laser and power settings. But then it also has a few modes. So you can do your standard laser. You can also hook up a rotary, and it supports that inside of the software as well. And then you can switch it over to the blade mode, where you can adjust the speed, but instead of power, you're going to adjust the pressure. So how hard this is pushing down to cut through your material. And xTool does a really good job of giving you a library of materials and recommended settings. Those are the ones I was using, and it's doing a really good job of giving me the results that I thought I should be getting. They also have a newish project section. It looks like they're building out that works across all of their machines. So you can load up a project, drop in the material, and then run it directly. A lot of these examples, I'm just running directly from the projects, so you can kind of see some of the variety that you can do with this machine. Now, if you've seen any other videos, you know that I love to use light burn with any of my lasers. Unfortunately, I have not been able to get it to work with this machine currently, and I've actually emailed xTool to see if that's something they're going to support in the future. I'm not exactly sure how the blade support would work inside of Lightburn, but I'm guessing since the xTool D1 supports it, potentially Lightburn is going to be something they support in the future. But I was pleasantly surprised with the software and how much progress they've made in the last year. And other than the really weird testing stuff that I do, it's pretty much going to be able to do anything that you need. And the best part is it doesn't cost anything. There's no monthly fee like with Glowforge, and it works locally on your machine, whether it's Mac, PC, Linux, any of those. They're going to be good to go, and they can connect it over Ethernet or over Wi-Fi. Now, because their software is integrating with the built-in camera, they're doing some pretty cool stuff. One is image extraction. So maybe you've got a design that lives in like the physical world, and you want to take that design out and then engrave it on something else or cut it out of something else. You can do that because of the camera built in. You'll just drop that design in, there's an image extraction button, and then you can pull that design out and use it however you want. And then probably the coolest feature, and something I haven't really seen in any other machine, has to do with batch parts. So all these little name tags that I was putting my logo on, pretty much just put willy-nilly all over the machine. I didn't line them up in any way. You can drop your design on one of these parts, and then you can use the batch processing detection. And then once it takes a picture of the layout with the camera, it's able to recognize where all of these pieces are. Then it auto puts your design on top of all of those pieces. I had these rotated all over the place, and it did a pretty good job of getting them lined up. I did find I had to go back in and tweak it a little bit to get everything exact. And if you really were doing batch parts, honestly using some type of jig where these are gonna go into the exact positions, and then you can have your grid laid out, this is gonna work better. But for fast stuff like this, that was a really cool feature and something you just can't do unless there's a camera built into your machine. Now, the only thing that I could see them developing more is just the image processing. So if you're bringing in like a JPEG or like a full photograph image, It's going to convert it to black and white, and then you can play with the contrast a little bit, but other software does a really good job of giving you the ability to define how it's going to interpret that image into a bunch of different dots. Lightburn, you can do like Jarvis or all these different algorithms. They're going to figure out how to best represent that image. Using a laser, you don't really get any of those options inside of their software. So you might have to do some image processing outside, like in Photoshop or some other photo editor, then bring it in if you want to get something exactly the way that you want. But I did do a quick example of Buzz Lightyear, the new Chris Evans version, where I just brought in the image. I used pretty much their stock settings, and I was able to get a pretty good result on this like really thin cardstock. So let's do some quick examples. I loaded up this project of a keychain holder out of basswood, and this is what the material looks like after it cut. And it did a good job cutting. I was able to go fairly quick, but you can also see some of the drawbacks of not having an air assist. You're seeing I'm getting a lot of soot, especially on the underside. And this one is another example project, and you can definitely tell that you're getting a ton of soot on the back as a result. Now, there was something a little bit weird happening. It was doing multiple passes when it should have just done one. So the amount of soot would definitely go down. And that might've been something I messed up where I just selected multiple passes. So I really could dial in my speed and power settings and not have as much charring, but you will get charring, especially if you're wanting to run this fast at high power, just because you don't have that air assist option built in. Now, I do get a good number of comments of folks asking why I don't show acrylic. And it's usually just because I don't have it, but I do have some acrylic that I used with my CO2 laser recently, and it does a good job. So this is just my logo that is cut out of black acrylic. The big thing with diode lasers is the acrylic cannot be clear, so it's not going to be able to cut through anything that is clear, but a colored acrylic, and especially this black acrylic, it does a really nice job of cutting this out. And then you can see what I was talking about. This acrylic comes with a film. So if I was getting some weird charring or some weird melting on the edges, this film is going to protect this from that. And once I peel it off, which I've already done to the front, you're going to get a nice crisp edge. And the other question that I get the most with diode lasers are, can they engrave or cut metal? They can't cut. You're gonna have to get something super powerful to be able to do that. But if it's a coated metal like stainless steel, like this name tag, you definitely can. So there's a Grogu that I can put on my Grogu that's like back there. You probably can't see him. But basically what it's doing is removing that top coating. So you're kind of getting some of the bare metal underneath. But if you have an anodized card, this will do a great job of just removing that top layer. There's also some aftermarket spray like Ceramark that you can put on raw metal, and then the diode lasers will do a good job of giving you a result with that. Then also with harder materials like this slate coaster, it does a really good job of removing that top layer and giving you that engraving effect that you're going to be looking for if you're dropping logos or text on these and potentially selling them. And then coming over to the blade side of things, this is going to be able to do anything that a Cricut or a Silhouette can do. The examples that I did, this is a fake leather they provided. So again, my logo I cut out. So maybe you want to use those inside pieces on something else. But this leather, you could also laser engrave it, and then you can come back and cut it with the blade so you don't get any charred edges to actually cut this thing out. And the blade especially is really fast when you compare it even to cutting with a diode laser. So that was fun to use. Also, you don't get any of the soot, you don't get any of the smoke, and it's a really clean process. And these are just like vinyl stickers. And I was just cutting out a bunch of the Republic logo from Star Wars, and they do have their settings dialed in pretty well because the pressure was set to where I was just removing this top layer, and you can see I wasn't cutting all the way through. And I was able to get these stickers off and actually put one right here on the front of the machine. All right, let's talk about accessories. So if you get like the full deluxe version of this, it comes with their rotary. This is not their most updated rotary, which I did a review of right there, but still this is gonna be great for doing mugs and cups that you can do on the diode laser. And then a few additional things are going to be an air purifier, and that should let you vent directly into the air purifier. And then it can be a fully enclosed system, so you're not having to put a hose out a window or out a door, or in my case, out of my garage. And they also have an additional exhaust fan that helps pull out even more of the fumes and the smoke to be able to get it out of your M1. Okay, so how does this compare to the xTool D1? The biggest things this has going for it is the full enclosure that helps with safety as well as smoke and dust extraction, and then the blade that lets you cut a bunch of materials that you can't with the diode laser. Now with the xTool D1, you're going to get a bigger work area. So it's a few inches in both the X and the Y buy. Currently, the D1 lets you use light burn as well as replace the laser module. So their upcoming 20-watt module is really easy to replace. And from the best that I can tell, you can't really replace the module that is built into this unit. And right now they're doing their pricing weird. There's different sales, but the best that I can tell, the M1, so this unit is going to be $200 to $300 more than the D1. So it really depends on the type of stuff that you want to do. If you want to cut with a blade, obviously this is going to be the unit that you need to get. But if you just need the diode laser, the D1 or any of the other ones that I have reviewed in the past might be an option for you if you don't want to spend over $1,000, which this one seems like it's going to land at once they hit their final price. Okay, now what about this versus a Glowforge? There are a lot of similarities with the machines in just that they are lasers, they have an enclosure, and there's a pretty tight integration with their software. And this one's nice because you don't have to be connected online, so everything is just local on your computer. This is much cheaper, so several $1,000s cheaper, but this is also a diode laser versus the Glowforge being a CO2 laser, so the Glowforge is a lot more powerful. It's got a built-in water cooling system as well as an air assist, where this one has neither of those. But then this also has the vinyl cutter, which the Glowforge really no other laser currently has. So if you don't need to do the high-end cutting that you might get with a Glowforge, or even one of the more industrial, cheaper style machines like that you can find from Ohm-Tech, and you don't need a large work area, this could work. So this machine definitely is on the high end in terms of price. If you're just looking for a diode machine, there's definitely more budget options. I still recommend the D1 from xTool if you just need the diode, but the vinyl cutter aspect of this is awesome. And this is definitely going to be a unit that's going to live in the shop. Now, speaking of the D1, I've done a full review of it and we're gonna jump into that right now. Until next time, go make or break something in your shop. See you guys.